What's going on, everybody? So welcome back to another video tutorial. So we're going to be doing a color grade tutorial on how I achieved this look here. And so this was incorporated for a project that I've been working on for the past month or so with a player off of Rugby Canada. So I'll be posting that later on once it's completed. But for now, let's dive into the color grade. And I should mention that I am not a professional colorist, so just take everything I do with a grain of salt. And, you know, some things could be wrong, some things might be right. Hopefully you can learn something along the way. And it's all about, you know, building a community where we can share some knowledge and information with one another. So without further ado, let's just hop on into the color page here in DaVinci Resolve. So before we do any sort of color grading and color correction, what I want to do is first go to my project settings, and that's just right down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So we'll click that, and then we'll go to our color management tab. So I was working in a color managed timeline. So my color science was DaVinci YRGB color managed. My color processing mode was DaVinci wide gamut intermediate. And my output color space is Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. So you will have to set it up like I did here in order to follow along with this tutorial. So once you have set that up, just make sure you click save, and then we'll go to our color page. So this is where you have two options. So I did some overall look adjustments that I wanted applied to the majority of my clips. And typically what I would do is I would go to, rather than the clip node section, I would go to the timeline section here, and then I would do my look creation in this area. But in this instance for this project, I had certain clips that I didn't want the overall look applied to. And so you can't do a look creation in the timeline section without it being applied to every single clip in your timeline. So instead what I did was I went back to the edit page here, and what you can do is you can actually add an adjustment layer from the effects panel. And so you can just drag and drop the adjustment layer as so. And instead of doing the timeline look creation, what you can do is you can actually create that look within the adjustment clip. And then any clips that you don't want it applied to, you can just bring them up over top the adjustment clip as so. And you can just stretch it throughout the duration of your timeline, and it's really excellent if, for instance, like in this scenario, I didn't want certain clips to be affected by this look creation. So it's up to you. So if you're using all clips and you're fine with all of them having this look implemented into it, then by all means use the timeline section here. Otherwise, just use an adjustment clip as I did. All right, so then what we want to do first is let's select all of our clips minus the adjustment clip. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it, and we're going to select our input color space. So this is going to be whatever you shot on your camera. So for instance, I shot with a Sony camera, so I'm going to select S-Gamut 3 Cine and S-Log 3. So as you can see, that just automatically brings our footage from a log format into Rec. 709, making it a lot easier and user-friendly for the actual look creation and color grading process. We won't have to do as many heavy adjustments. So once you've got that done, then it's time to get into our clip. So I'm going to just use this clip here. All right, so I'm starting off in my adjustment clip here, and you can do it in the timeline section. So what I'm going to do first is create 6 serial nodes, and then let's just go ahead and label these as follows. Okay, perfect. So what we want to do is first start in our primaries node here. And with this one, we are going to use our color wheels, and we're just going to be adjusting the lift, gamma, and gain in order to properly balance out our image to something that's visually appealing to us. So we don't want our highlights to be too bright, and we don't want our shadows to be too dark. We just want to find a nice balance here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the lift down just ever so slightly, and I'm going to bring the gamma up to about 0.02, and then let's bring the gain down to, about 0.76 here. And then I'm also going to bring the offset down. So let's bring that down to 21.75 there. Perfect. And then, so then let's go to our log wheels, and I'm just going to adjust the midtones here. So I want to bring it up just a little bit to about 0.1. And so that's all we're going to be doing for our primaries adjustment. It's very minor, but it darkens our image a little bit. We're gonna enhance this as we go. Next, let's move on to our HDR node. And for this one, we'll go to the HDR wheels and we'll be using these. So we wanna first program them to match our color space and gamma. So just under the 3 tabs here, click that and then select your color space. So mine was Sony S-Gamut 3 Cine. And then your gamma is whatever you used. So I had S-Log 3. So that's all set up there. And then what I want to do is I want to bring the darks down slightly here, down to about, negative 0.18. And then I'm gonna bring the shadows up about 0.17 here. And then that's all we're gonna do for those adjustments. Next, moving on to the curves node here. So we'll be working in the custom curves. And then what we'll want to do is we're gonna be making an S curve of sorts here. So let's just expand this to make it a little larger. Okay, so I'm going to be adding some control points, and let's first add one right down here in the left quadrant. I'm just going to hold Option just to ensure that it stays on this line. And then I'm going to bring this left control point up just ever so slightly like that. We don't want the shadows to be crushed. So we're just going to lift that up a little bit to prevent our shadows from getting crushed. And we'll just play around with it till we get something that we like. Okay, I'm happy with that. So let's show you before, after. So again, it's subtle, just kind of ties everything together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect all of the curves. So I'm going to make them all separate. So we're just going to keep our luminance curve as is here. And then what we want to do is we want to just reset all the other ones. I should have done this beforehand, but we are doing it now. All right, perfect. So now with all of those reset back to where they started, except for the luminance one, we're going to work with the green curve first. And let's start by adding a control point right here. Just hold Option as you do it, just to hold it along the line here. And then we're gonna bump up the green. We're just gonna bring it up, the control point up to about here. And then let's also go over to the blue curve and let's do the exact same thing. And then I wanna do the red curve. I want to then bring it up just ever so slightly. Perfect, let's leave it at that. Now we can move on to our saturation node. So for our saturation node, what we're gonna do is we're gonna work with our primary color wheels, and we're gonna be adjusting the gamma and gain to manipulate the saturation in a more filmic way. So it's a lot subtler than just using the saturation slider. I'm gonna go back to my primaries and I want to actually adjust them slightly. So I want to brighten this up a little bit. So let's bring the gain up and then let's bring the gamma down. Let's see. Yeah, so that looks good. For the saturation node, what I want to do is I want to right click on it and I want to actually set the color space to HSV for that. And then I'm going to also right click and make sure that only channel 2 is selected. We'll just unclick the other two. And yeah, then what we're going to do is we're going to use our gamma and gain to adjust the saturation of the image. So I'm going to bring my gamma up to 0.05. And then what I want to do is I'm going to bring my gain all the way down. I'm going to bring it down to about 0.47. So as you can see, it's just reducing the saturation of certain elements of our shot. And then we can just play around with it to see what best fits our shots as we go. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Next, what I want to do is I want to go back to my split tone node. And with this, we're going to be working with the custom curves. And the aim of the game here is basically just to add some blue or cyan to our shadows, and then a little bit of warmth to our highlights and midtones. So let's make sure all of the curves are unlinked here. I'm just going to expand it, make it bigger so we can see what we're doing. Let's start with our green or our blue curve. And so I'm just going to place a control point right around here, and we're just going to push this up. It's okay if it's a bit dramatic. And what we're going to do is we're going to go for the green curve, and we're just going to put a control point in the same spot. And again, just push it up. Not quite as much, about halfway, create more of a cyan. And I'm going to actually adjust these control points. I'm just going to slide them slightly over. Same with the blue. Already, I think that's looking a lot better. This is just going to provide a little bit of dimensionality to our shot and really separate our subject from the background. So let's pop on over to the red curve, and this one can be a little touchy. So we're going to put a control point, same spot where the other ones are, where the blue and green control points are. And then we're just going to put another control point here. I don't want to add too much of the red. I'm going to put that there. What I'm actually going to do is go back to the blue curve, and I'm going to take away a little bit the blue just to make it a little bit more yellow. Perfect. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's leave that as is, and we'll move on to our final node. So our final node is our glow node. And with this one, super simple. I'm just using the glow effect in our effects library. So let's just type in glow and then simple drag and drop on there. And I'm just decreasing the shine threshold all the way, decreasing the spread. And then what we want to do is just scroll on down to the composite type, and we're going to select soft light. And then all I want to do is go down to the global blend, and I'm going to bring this down quite a bit. I don't want it to be overly dramatic. So yeah, I'm going to leave it about at 0.1. So as you can see, it's just very subtle amount of glow in the highlights of our image. I'm happy with that. So that's going to be our look creation for all of our clips, or the clips that we want it to be applied to, seeing as how it's within an adjustment clip. So I'll show you before and after. So this is before, after, before, after. So yeah, it's subtle, it's not over the top, but we don't want it to be over the top either. All right, so then what we want to do is we want to do our color grade on the clip level now. And so let's select our clip that we're working with here, and just going to go to the same spot. And so the setup for the node tree on the clip level here, it's going to be in a parallel node structure. So what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 parallel nodes, and then let's select the top parallel node, and let's create an additional 2 serial nodes. And then down below, we're going to create an additional serial node as well. And then just following the parallel mixer, we're just going to create a serial node. All right, so to get the ball rolling, what I want to do is first label them. So let's label this as our tint/temp. We're going to label this one as our primaries. This one's going to be saturation, so on the clip level, so any additional saturation adjustments we want to do. This one's going to be for our skin adjustments. Actually, we're going to add another serial node after this one. And then this one is going to be for other color adjustments. And then the final one here in our parallel node structure is going to be for our curve. And then this one at the end, this one's going to be for our collation. We'll also actually incorporate grain into it. Let's start with working in our primaries. All right, so with the primary node, what we want to do first is right click on it, and we want to go to composite mode, and we want to select luminosity. So then let's go to our color wheels, and then again, we're just going to play around with it until we get an image that looks nice and balanced to us, where our highlights aren't too bright or our shadows aren't too dark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first bring up my shadows to about 1.08, and then I'm going to also bring up my gamma to 0.04, and then let's bring down the lift to negative 0.06. So we're going to fix this later, and we can always come back and adjust it, but for now, let's leave it at that. Let's go to the tint temperature node, and for this one I am just using the temperature and tint sliders. I know this isn't the most technical approach, but it worked for me for this specific look, so I chose to go with that method rather than trying to overcomplicate it. So what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to introduce a lot more green as well as some more warmth into the image. So first things first, let's bring our temperature slider, bring it up to, I'm gonna bring it to 170 here. And then let's add some green into our image here. So I'm gonna add quite a bit here. So yeah, it's gonna be about negative 29.5 for the green value. So then let's leave it at that, and we can always come back to it and make any more adjustments that are needed. And then with the saturation node, again, what I want to do is I want to select the color space of HSV, and I want to make sure that my channels are set to only channel 2. So I'm just going to uncheck channel 1 and then uncheck channel 3. So I'm going to leave the saturation as is for now, and I can always come back to it closer to the end. Let's first dive into our skin adjustments. So go to our vector scope, and we got our skin line indicator on here, as you can see. So when we hover over the skin, it's looking a little bit on the yellow-green side, which is expected with implementing more green into our shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually try to use the color slice here, and then let's just see what our skin tone selector is. We're going to try using the skin tone selection here. So let's try adding a little bit more red into our skin tones. Let's take a peek and see what that is. So I'm going to increase my saturation of my skin tones just to see them a little bit better, make them a little bit more prominent. So we'll bring it up to about 1.2. And then let's see. Yeah, so that's looking a little bit better. We're gonna fine tune adjust it a little bit more just so that falls on the curve a little nicer. But for now, let's leave it as is. We can always come back and readjust. So let's move on to our other color adjustments. I'm just gonna stay in our color slice tab here. And first things first, what I want to do is I want to adjust the red, because with Team Canada, there is a lot of red, not so much in this shot, but as you can see, there's red here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the saturation here to 1.1, and then I'm going to increase the color density to about 0.26. Next, what I want to do is I want to increase the color density of the yellows. I'm going to put it at 0.32 right there. And then I'm going to bring down the saturation of cyan to about 0.82, and then we're going to bring the color density up to about 0.14. So then with blues, we're going to bring the saturation down to about 0.72, and then that'll do it. That'll do the trick for the color adjustments. So you can see before, after, very subtle, but does the trick. So then next we're going to work on our curve. So let's go to our custom curves and let's just link them all back together. And we're going to turn on our editable splines for this scenario. And what I want to do is just create a nice S-curve. So I'm going to first bring my leftmost control point up, and then I'm going to bring this spline down to about there. And then we're going to also click on the uppermost right control point. We're going to bring it down here and then just bring the spline up. And you can just adjust it according to what best suits your image. So yeah, I just went back into my skin tone node and I just changed the hue a little bit. So I brought it down to negative 0.36 and just brought the color density up to 0.09. And then I went into the color adjustment and I just altered the hue for the green. So I brought it down to negative 0.294. And then with the curve, there was just slight adjustments. So I just adjusted the editable spline a little bit. So I brought that so it was angled down, and then same for this upper rightmost one, just angled that up. So it just made the image pop a little bit more there. And then the only final thing is the halation and grain. So that's just a stylistic preference. So with this, I actually just use the dehancer halation and grain, but you can just use the free halation and free grain effects in the effects library. So I'm just gonna drag and drop that here. And then what I just wanted to do is I wanted to make sure everything is turned off. Basically just make sure everything is turned off, save for film grain and halation. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna enable both of those, and then we're gonna customize both the grain and the halation. I just want them to be extremely subtle. So I want to first bring the size down quite a bit to 4.45, and then we're going to bring the amount down almost all the way. We're going to bring down to 2.8. We're going to leave the film resolution. We're going to bring the shadows down quite a bit. We're going to leave it at 9.1. We're going to bring the midtones down quite a bit. Leave it at 9.1 as well. And then let's bring the highlights down. I'm going to put it at 8.3. And then I want to bring the chroma almost all the way down to 6.4. We're going to leave it as positive for the film type and analog. And then for the halation, we're just going to go custom again. And we're going to bring the source limiter all the way down. We're going to then bring the background gain down to 56. I'm going to leave the smoothness the same. I want to change the local diffusion So I want to bring that down to about 6.4. I want to bring the global diffusion all the way down, or almost all the way down, about 1.9. And then I'm going to bring the amplify up to 100. The hue, we're going to bring it all the way to the left. Leave the blue compensation all the way at 100. And then we're going to leave the impact at 70. Let's just show you what it looks like before. So this is just with the timeline adjustments or the adjustment clip. So the look creation. This is with nothing. Let's turn that back on and then just select all this. So then this is with our color grade. So as you can see, it's looking, green, and kind of more filmic and moody. And that is exactly what I'm looking for. So hopefully you were able to follow along in this tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you thought and if you have any suggestions. And also if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and further suggestions for videos in the future. Be happy to look into that. But yeah, hopefully you can apply this to a project that you're working on currently, and stay tuned for the release of this project. It'll probably be in the next few weeks. Keep creating, keep being awesome, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.